Good day, grade 10. This is module 6 functions, and it's day 51 on the 17th of June. So we're going to start with functions. We're going to learn about four functions, but today we are starting with straight line graphs or linear functions. Okay, so this is lies a good foundation for the rest of functions as well as for grade 11. So please make sure that you understand everything. If you understand everything perfectly in this these 8 days, then everything will be easier about functions. Alright, so straight line graphs, as the name says, are straight lines. We have done this in grade 9. So see if you can remember. Each function has an equation. So the general equation for a straight line is y is equal to mx plus c. You have to know that by heart. If I wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I say straight line graph, then you have to say y is equal to mx plus c. So what do these letters stand for? Y and x stand for coordinates. We've learned about coordinates in analytical geometry as well. Those are points on a graph, form coordinates. Then the m stands for the gradient. We've talked about the gradient as well. It's about how steep the line is. And then the y-intercept is the c value, is the y-intercept. In other words, where the line cuts the y-axis. That's the y-intercept. Now let's look at these examples of equations. When I have y is equal to 4x plus 5, then if I ask for the m value, the gradient, it's what's in front of x, the coefficient of x. That's 4. So the m value is 4. And the c value is 5. Oops. The c value is 5. Okay. Then the next one, the m value is negative 2. That's the gradient. And the y-intercept, the c value is 4. The next one, y is equal to negative 5x. Okay, so that looks a little bit different. It looks a lot shorter. So what's in front of x is the m value, negative 5. And what is the c value? I don't see a c value. I can add a plus 0 there. That makes no difference to the equation. So that 0 is the c value. The next one, y is equal to 9. That looks way too short for me. And I don't see anything in front of the x. So let's rewrite that as 0x plus 9. I can rewrite it as that because 0 times x is 0 plus 9 is 9. So it gives me just y is equal to 9 again. So then I can read off the m value, the gradient, it's what's in front of x, that is 0, and the c value, which is 9. Okay, so the gradient, if you can remember from analytical geometry, the gradient is delta y over delta x, that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's how I work out the gradient. We're going to talk a little bit more about the gradient now. And the c value is the y-intercept. Alright, then next we're talking about increasing and decreasing linear function. A line is said to be increasing if the y values increase as the x values increase. So in other words, if I have a positive gradient, I have an uphill line like that, and I say it has an increasing gradient. If I have a negative m value, negative gradient, I have a downhill line like that, and the line is a decreasing gradient. Okay, so from the previous exercise, the following should be clear. If the coefficient of x is if the coefficient of x in the equation y is equal to mx plus c is positive, if m is greater than 0, then the line is increasing, slopes up, as read from left to right. Okay, so what does this mean in English? It says that if I have, for example, y is equal to 2x plus 3, then the m value, what's in front of x, is positive. So that means that I'll have an uphill line like that. Okay, so it's an increasing line. So the next one says in English, if I have a negative m value, a negative gradient, like negative 2x plus 3, then I have a negative gradient, so I'll have a downhill line like that. Okay, then the lines which have equations with the same coefficient are parallel. So that just says that if I have two parallel lines, parallel like that, means that those have the same coefficients of x, so the same gradients. So for example, if I have y is equal to 2x plus 1 and y is equal to 2x plus 3, then I have the same gradient. Both have the gradient 2, so that will make them parallel lines. Right, so that's what that says. It's just you have to have a good clear perception of that. Right, let's see. The example says, draw the straight line by using the table method. Draw the graph of y is equal to 3x. Okay, so y is equal to 3x. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the set of axes, or the Cartesian plane. So it's very important that you draw this accurately. I draw it with the y values each on a line of my book. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I make an arrow at the end of the axis and I say it's the y-axis. And to the bottom it's -1, -2, -3. I use the lines of my book for that. You also have to do it exactly like that. It has to be neat and you have to show it just like that. Then the x-axis, I use centimeters on my ruler. Exactly 1 centimeter apart. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Alright, so to get the values in the table, I first draw a table that looks like this. X values, -1, 0, 1. I choose my own x values. You can choose your own x values. It doesn't matter what x values you choose, but make sure that you have negative values, 0, and positive values. Okay? Just choose -1, 0, and 1. That'll work well. Then I'm going to find the y values by substituting the x values into the equation. So here's what I do. I say y is equal to 3 times x. The x value that I'm using now is -1. So in the place of x, I put -1. So it's 3 times -1 is -3. So then the y value will be -3. Then I put in 0. Y is equal to 3 times 0, which is 0. So the y value there will be 0. Then I put in 1. Y is equal to 3 times 1, which is 3. So I put in 3. Now, each of these in the table form a coordinate. So it's going to be -1, -3. So I make a line in my imagination at -1 on the x-axis and at -3 on the y-axis. I make those lines. Then where they intersect, I make a little dot. Then at 0, 0, that's the origin, so that's there in the center. At 1 and 3, now I make a line at 1 on the x-axis. Goodness, let me just make it longer. 1 on the x-axis, 3 on the y-axis, and where they intersect, I make a dot. Then I draw a line through these points and I make arrows at the end. It's very important. You have to do it exactly like I'm doing it. Okay, so you make arrows at the end to show that this line actually goes on and on and on. It doesn't stop right there. If I don't draw the arrows, it means that the line stops, and that's not true. Okay, then what I do next is I write down the equation y is equal to 3x. Where do I find that again? That's the equation that they gave me right there. So I'm going to write it there at the top, and then I always have to write down the coordinates of the intercepts with the axes. So I'm going to write down this intercept. There's only one intercept, and that's at 0, 0. So where the line crosses the axis, I have to put in coordinates. So that's at 0, 0. And that's it. That's my perfect graph. I can just rub out these little lines because they are actually in my imagination, those orange lines. And that is a perfect straight line linear graph. Alright. So what you have to do next is you have to do the following questions. It's from day 51 in your notes. So do those three, draw those three lines, press pause, go draw them, and when you are ready you can press play again and we can mark those together. Right, the first one is the equation y is equal to x. Okay, so for that line, I'm first going to draw a table because they said with the table method, we are going to learn other methods. So the table method, I chose the x values -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And then I draw my set of axes exactly on the lines of my book. I draw the y values, positive and negative. And then I also draw the x values 1 centimeter apart with my ruler, at least up to 5 and -5. Okay, then I'm going to put in my x values in the equation. Y is equal to x, so y is equal to x. So if x is -2, then y is also -2. If x is -1, y is -1. If x is 0, y is 0. If x is 1, y is 1. If x is 2, y is 2. Then I start drawing them. I'm only going to draw my imagination lines once. If I have -2 on the x-axis, -2 on the y-axis, I get that little dot there. Then -1, -1 is the next one. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. Then I draw a straight line through them. Write down my equation, y is equal to x, and write down the coordinate of the intercept. So the intercept is at 0, 0. And that is my perfect graph. The next one is y is equal to 2x. I've already drawn my table and my Cartesian plane. Please draw it perfectly every time. I know it's a lot of trouble, but that will give you the marks if your work is neat and you have everything exactly like that. It's actually easy marks if you are not lazy. Okay, then y is equal to -2x. So first I put in -2. So let's just do the first one. Y is equal to -2 times -2, which gives me 4. So the first value in my table is 4. -2 times -1 is 2. -2 times 0 is 0. -2 times 1 is -2. -2 times 2 is -4. Then I go draw my points. So it's -2 and 4. -1 and 2. 0, 0. 1, -2. And 2, -4. Draw a straight line through them, make arrows at the ends, and write the equation y is equal to -2x, and also the coordinate of the intersection point. Oh, and something that I almost forgot is that we had to write down if the lines are increasing or decreasing. That's the question. Okay, so let's just do this one first. This one is a decreasing line, so I can just write here decreasing. The previous one, let's go back, that one was an increasing line. Alright, number 2, if you want to have a look at that again before we go on to number 3. Number 3 is y is equal to a half x. So I'm going to do my table. I'm going to substitute in the x values. Remember, I chose my own x values. you could choose your own as well. You have to have negative values, 0, and positive values. So it's going to be y is equal to a half times x, which is negative 2. I'm first using that value. A half times negative 2 is negative 1. So that's going to be negative 1 then. Okay, a half times negative 1 is negative a half times 0 is 0, a half times 1 is a half times 2 is 1. Now I'm going to plot the points. Negative 2, negative 1, negative 1 and a half, 0, 0, 1 and a half, and 2, 1. I draw a line through them with arrows at the ends, and I write down the equation as well as the coordinate of the intersect. So it's y is equal to a half x. That's the perfect one. Okay, so if you have any questions of today's work, please just email your teacher. And this is it for today.